Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 83 of the Titanforge podcast. My name is Dratnos, joined by my friends Tettles
Yo,
and
what's
Terrell.
up?
What's up, guys?
Yo, Tettles joining us in the darkness there. Actually, I stream like that all the time, actually. This is very nice.
This is definitely some of those days are just like that where you're like, fuck it, I'm not turning the line, I'm not dealing with this.
Yeah, the problem I have with that is that it then becomes very apparent when I'm alt tabbing because my face just like light mode and dark mode light me up very differently.
Yes.
Whenever I'm in the room like that, so I don't do it for the podcast because I tab around so much for all the different stuff. But it's tempting. It's tempting. So this week we are going to discuss not any topic at all, one might say, which a harsh critic of our show might say is not uncommon, but we think it'll be a little bit of a special case where we're having some trouble coming up with some specific thing to drill down on this week. So we decided instead, everybody in these trying times, as those adverts on TV like to keep saying, everybody's yearning for some friendly camaraderie, human contact, connection, that kind of stuff. So we figured we'd try and provide a dose of that today. Tell us a bunch of stories, hang out, vibe, and not do any specific topics so much. But before we get to that, I guess we should start by talking about something that is timely, which is that it is the push week this week, the big push week on the Mythic Plus calendar. Bursting, Volcanic, Fortified, Prideful. Perhaps the last time we will have this set of affixes in 9.0 as well, because we will certainly be at least at 9.05. We might even be at 9.1 by the time it comes back at the end of May. So yeah. It's definitely a big moment for teams pushing keys, and there's obviously a lot of that on Twitch right now and for the rest of the week, so it is worth calling attention to. Are you guys planning on pushing some keys this week?
I mean, if I get invited, I don't have any set in stone plans, so it's just like one of those things that I'm not super. I don't know. I'm just around. If people want to play, then yeah, I'm down. I'm not really just like yearning for it kind of thing, right? I'm not just gonna fucking AFK in my order hall waiting.
How about you, Trell?
Yeah, probably later in the week a little bit, just with some friends. Nothing like 24, 25s, just on brew. I think maybe some 21s, 22s.
Side note, I do actually think this push week will probably come back around this season.
Yeah, well, I think that, so it's by the end of May, right? It's like the last week of May or the second last week of May that would be this set of affixes again.
I can't see the next patch coming out until June, man.
Well, I think that the patch could come out by then, and we might be in like the off season. I think maybe it's pretty reasonable that they would land then. But you're right, the fact they didn't announce the 9.1 date does make it, the longer that goes unannounced, the increasingly likely it is that it's back into June or July. One thing for anybody who is pushing this week, we do have, Tettles, you have your weekly article on Wowhead that has some tips for each dungeon, as well as this tier list, which is basically just always Mist Halls of Atonement at the top, Theater Pain, Sanguine Depths at the bottom, the other stuff somewhere in the middle.
I think that seems about accurate. I mean, notably, Plaguefall and Necrotic Wake actually finally made it into S tier for the first time like ever. But yeah, I would tend to agree that shit's normally pretty fair. I mean, the article this week actually ended up having just a lot of tips and random shit. Because there's not a ton to talk about in regards to like what's difficult about the dungeon beyond the scope of like the dungeon itself is hard, right?
Yeah, there's actually a lot of really good good tip content in here. That I think a read through of this for whatever dungeon you're about to do, particularly if you're like new, if you haven't done too many keys this season and you're trying to do a lot this week, I think you can borrow a lot of experience from this article. I have as well my weekly route article, which has a little bit of that kind of tip content, but a lot less comprehensive actually than yours. But it does come with routes for each dungeon as well, so you can yoink those and get started with them. I would definitely advise, if you're interested in pushing in a serious capacity, or even with just like the same group more than once in a row, change the route or make your own based on your group and based on what you're able to pull off, because there's a pretty heavy set of constraints that come into them when I'm creating them that doesn't apply to everybody. So if you make your route better based on which of those constraints you don't have.
I mean, this week is probably the easiest to get at least all of your 15s and like Keystone Masters and stuff done, especially before Valor points and whatnot come out.
Yeah, and there's a good chance that that achievement is going to be account wide. So if you have the there's a good chance that Valor Point upgrades to 220 will be effectively account wide. In that you just need the Keystone Master achievement, which is account wide, and looks like that might be also, getting it on a character and will potentially be very good for. Then you can just do some 2s and 4s on an alt and get it 220. Could be pretty cool.
Some 2s and 4s. That'd be sick if that made like 2s and 4s like a regular thing that everyone does in their alts. That'd be awesome.
People are still going to do the 14s because you still want the Great Vault as well, and it's more Valor points as well.
Yeah, there's no chance you're going to con something. Yo, you want to do a 4 for Valor?
Dude, people, I swear I run into like people trying to do alt keys below, like keys in the 2 to 4 range all the time. I don't know. It's weird to me because
you actively run into those.
No, people? like people like posted, like casuals in guild or whatever posted, or I see so many of those groups around, and like I don't know.
What people do you have in your guild exactly?
Casuals, friends. It's a popular guild. It's a happening place to be.
I think new people to the game that happen to be a casual and like a really good guild will do that all the time. Like I see it in several guilds that I've been recently.
I don't know.
They're just trying to learn. They're trying to get up there,
Yeah. Newer players as well as alts. So I don't know. Anyways, good. It's a good thing to go for Keystone Master if you're interested in that potentially. Okay, that concludes our topical, timely part of the show. We are going to move on. So we've got like it's kind of like story time is our main topic. We've got a bunch of like story suggestions from Discord, and it's also sort of Q&A as well.
We're just messing around.
So that'll be the plan. But we're going to start off with tip of the week, and to set the scene here, I have a nice one for you.
Oh shit! Uh-oh.
So here's my tip of the week. In the mid-1400s, the Ottomans faced a unique challenge. Constantinople was the city that they were trying to capture, but it had really big fortifications and was placed in a really defensible spot. So they had to keep innovating and making these bigger and bigger cannons and more impressive artillery and more of the artillery. And eventually, a little bit after they got Constantinople, actually, they made this massive gun. Here, I'll show it on stream now. It weighed 18 tons. And they had to construct this thing using a lever. They cast this, they forged this in 2 parts, and then they had this like complicated system to actually screw them onto each other. This gun is just massive here. But after this point, the needs to make bigger and bigger artillery just became less important because fortification technology started outpacing what you could do by just making guns bigger, making bigger cannons. So that was basically the high watermark. And there were some bigger cannons created later, but for the most part, that was the end of that in terms of the arms race between cannons and walls. And human, as a species, we stopped having this like arms race for trying to create the biggest possible cannon. And that has all changed, where now as a species, we once again have an incentive to create just the largest possible cannon we can, so that we can launch every single hard drive with the Stone Legion General's fight data on it into orbit if possible, or perhaps if ideally directly into the sun. So if we could get something where we could just fit every single computer part that has ever had data of Stone Legion General, we could just out of this atmosphere.
That was
so good. I know Troll and I are just sitting here like, what the fuck is he going with this story?
I thought there was a high chance that it just wasn't WoW related whatsoever, but I wasn't sure.
I was sitting there thinking, I was like, is this like the origin story of how Constantinople became Istanbul? I was like, where is he going with this?
That's my tip of the week.
That was a good one.
Get involved in canon creation if you can. There's an urgent need. Draw, what is your tip of the week?
I can't follow that one.
Hold on. I can read you, and I'll set you up, and you deliver. All right.
Okay.
So deep into Maldraxxus, there are an interesting divide in the factions of the Slimes and the Slime Boys, and occasionally you end up having to fight the Slime Boys once you go deep enough into Maldraxxus. And with there being such an incredibly large arms race for the cannons, there's a very short supply of manual labor available. So that's why whenever you ascend into the Plaguefall as a 5-man party and reach Dr. Ickis,
that is when you need the crucial knowledge that when Dr. Ickis starts his jumps, he starts his plus sign formation from the previous spot where he jumped from. So you want to keep your eye on him the whole time where he jumps. He jumps 3 times. But each time he jumps, he'll draw a line first between his last location and his next location, and then the other 3 lines will go out from there. So that's how you avoid those lines and don't die.
Good shit.
Good job, Tettles.
Yeah, that provided some crucial background for what was going on there. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people get caught by, especially like melee, because there's, you can get close to him while he's jumping, but you have to be really careful because he does, like, it'll hit right in front and right behind him, and then the 90 degrees on the side. So you're trying to find like this pocket of just to the offset, like the angle. But yeah, once you know what to look for, you can do it every time. It takes a little bit of getting used to. All right, and then Tettles has for us a clip of the week from Dorky Bear. Of course, the bear himself, Tomobor, is his WoW character. But Dorky Bear, if you guys haven't, I don't know, it's old news by now. But Dorky Bear's his Twitch channel now. It's less than a year old, I think. What are we seeing in this clip here, Tettles?
Yeah, so notably, all of the wall apparently they didn't like to code every single wall into mists to be completely solid. So a lot of them, you can just pull a bunch of random shit through them, and apparently you can even get 2 frogs. 2 frogs. Those motherfuckers are 16 count a piece. That is the most efficient pull you can do in that dungeon, is double Gorge Gullet.
Yeah, we actually did that poll after seeing this clip, me and some friends, and we came out of the maze with 77% count.
Dude, you can just look on his M+ timer and see just how big of a green bar is there as like predicted count from the stuff he's in combat with. That is insane. Side note, is this a double tank group that he's playing with right now? This
ignore that.
Okay.
There was a lot of weird shit that they were doing. They did double tank for like hours. They also randomly pugged a healer out of somebody's chat and like lobbed growl. Randomly pugged a healer out of somebody's chat to heal a 20 and lobbed growl. That was pretty good. Yeah, it was good. That was good. Good times for them. But yeah, okay. So, anyways, more to the point, you can get good count by doing that. Make sure that your tank knows that it's coming.
All right. Let's move on to our main topic, which is story time. Our first kind of story prompt comes from Riley in Discord, who asks us about our favorite dungeon gone wrong stories. So does anybody have a story that jumps to mind about a dungeon gone wrong, perhaps?
Ooh, I got one.
Okay.
Once upon a time, I got asked by some friends to do an Atalazar.
Uh-huh.
And I joined the group, and I see Tettles and Dratno support from the group.
I was thinking about this one as well.
It's better. I got invited as a DPS, which meant Tettles was tanking. And that key got really spicy as soon as we got to the trash right before Priestess Alunza. Tettles charges in and instantly dies.
No, those fervent strikes were not all right, dude.
Yeah, that's the origin of the fervent strike word, actually, for those of you that didn't play in BFA. Those fervent strike mobs hit the nearest target if the tank's out of range, but they also just do a ton of damage, so the tank has to be like super prepared for them.
And Tettles is playing Bear as well, so it's like the hardest tank to be like ready on pull for big damage, and so he just like charged in and just was dead that same global. And then we had like popped Lust and everything as well, so we just had to come back and like do it without Lust and try it again. It was rough times.
I forgot about that. I had actually forgotten so far about that.
Yeah, I was in several in BFA that were that went quite wrong. I was in a King's Rest that took over 2 hours.
What happened?
Well, it was like one of those It was like, you upgrade your key just barely. We did like a 21 freehold and we just barely timed it, and it was like, this is sick. And we got a 22 King's Rest. And then I ended up like doing that as a weekly no leaver at some point in the future, and it was not good. We did complete it, but it was a real struggle.
All right, I actually did end up coming up with one. I also have another story about a guild gone wrong, but the dungeon gone wrong story, I have 2 of them. I remember them very notably. So these, let me paint a scene. These are back in the WoW progress score days, where you got WoW prog score based on just completing the dungeon at a higher level, and it didn't matter if you completed the dungeon within the timer or not. And so this created a very stupid set of gameplay where you would just weakly no lever the shit out of a key, and it didn't matter because there were also a lot of dungeons that were very grossly imbalanced. Upper Karazhan and Halls of Valor are the two that I've been trapped in really heavily. And dude, okay, so we go into the Halls of Valor. I'll just talk about the Halls of Valor because I'll talk about both of them. They were actually both fucking trash. But the Halls of Valor, we did the first boss and everything's going fine. I'm like, damn, maybe we're just gonna deplete this like a normal deplete. We get to Herja, and she actually just farms us for 2 fucking hours, man. We're getting the chain lightning into the circle combo, and it's just like I don't even know how to live this. And we're zoning out. We're getting like we're wearing all tank gear. I even respect Guardian at one point to try to live this boss because it's not a damage check. You're actually just trying to live at this point. And that boss farmed us for so fucking long. It was awful. And then the Upper Kara, which was very similar. Mana Devour actually just was a terrible fight and would blow you up every single time. And like this is before the strategy where you knew to immune the orb, like keep the boss in the corner and immune the orbs.
Yeah, with blood DK.
So we were moving the fucking boss across the room and trying to soak the orbs manually. And I must admit, it was really bad. And so we got stuck there for like 4 hours too. We got points for both of those runs, by the way. So
yeah, the reason why he got points is because before Radar.io even existed, all score for Mythic Plus was recorded via WoW progress. And so you get points just off of completing the key, no matter how depleted it was. So Tettle's 4.5 hour Upper Kara was worth more points than someone else's like 30-minute Upper Kara one level lower.
I guess the last Dungeon Gone Wrong story is having the 4-man fucking MDI, but that was a spectacle for sure. I don't know. That was an unfortunate series of events where I didn't have a teammate show up.
Viewers. 4-manning the MDI. You guys actually had a chance. I watched that live. You had a chance against the other team. They messed up, and I was like, they could do this. 4-person team.
I watched it back recently, and I was saying, I'm like, we were fucking close. I'm like, why were we so close?
That would have been so epic.
I have an MDI Dungeon Gone Wrong story as well from like BFA season 2 MDI or something. Time trials. So we had this Ataldazar, and I was playing Rogue in like all 3 dungeons, obviously, because Rogue was good, and I was a main Rogue at the time. And so we had this skip into Volkal's room and then out of Volkal's room that was the whole blind run next to it, get in combat, and then like vanish later, and the rest of the group is run through. But that ended up like not working for us at some point because our healer got aggro through a hot ticking on me or something. So I created a macro to cancel all my hots. So that couldn't happen again. And so, I would make sure I canceled all my hots, and we got through the blind every time, and that worked out. We eventually got a pretty good time in Ataldazar. So then we come to the Underrot, which is our next dungeon, and we are doing Kragmaw's room in 2 pulls. So there's 3 pulls, each of which contain like 3 Feral Bloodswarmers or two Feral Bloodswarmers. And our first one, which contains 3 Feral Bloodswarmers, which those things murder players. I was fixated by all 3. And so that's a scary moment. I was fixated by all 3 Feral Bloodswarmers. I was in serious danger. And so I panicked. And I pressed my bind, which is on my live server, as my Engineering Belt Shield. Because hey, Engineering Belt Shield is a good button to press when you're under a lot of attack, right? That's a good reflex to have. But unfortunately, I had rebound that on the Tournament Realm because you couldn't have Engineering Belts on the Tournament Realm. I rebound that to my Cancel All Hots button from earlier in Ataldazar. So I had just the previous global for my healer was Cenarian Ward, and I had just hit this Canceller, which I'd meticulously included, even though there was really no purpose. Cenarian Ward as well within the list of possible hots I could get, and it just clears all of them.
What did he say? Was he just like, what the fuck?
So it was Azuna, actually. Billy, our guild's mage, he was playing Resto Druid on our team for this MDI, and
I forgot about that.
He was more sad than disappointed than angry. I think it was, this is just kind of this moment of like, what has happened here? How did we get here?
Yeah, that'd be pretty awkward.
Yeah,
I canceled all my hots, and I have 3 swarmers fixating me. Help.
Well, I mean, I felt very bad about it. It was not good. But it was an important lesson I learned.
What did you learn?
Don't keep that kind of thing bound. Ideally, put it on a different bind than a panic hit, because I think it's a good instinct to like panic hit an engineer, a shield or a health stone or whatever. If you're fixated, right? Like that. I don't know. I feel like that pathway is good. That thinking is good, but clearly it needs to be set up so that doesn't happen. All right, Tettles, you said you had like a sort of related story.
Oh, shit. Oh yeah, the guild gone wrong story, dude. I joined a guild. I'm gonna remain the guild. I'm gonna make sure the guild remains nameless. But dude, I joined a guild for 2 days after my guild died in Nighthold. I joined this guild, and this is actually just like, all right. So I'm sitting there. I was raiding like 14 hours a week. I want to say we're doing like 3.5 hours a night, something like that. We're in like 14 or 14 and a half hours a week, something silly, something weird. And I'm sitting there like, all right, my guild's died. I'm going to start applying to these guilds that are higher ranked than me. And it's like, I'm willing to raid 20 hours a week. And so I'm applying to this guild that raiding 20 hours a week. And this is like, whatever. And they interview me and they accept me as a trial. And like, the reason I joined there is because they also said that they would take like 2 of my other friends that I was raiding with at the time. And I was like, all right, I'm down. And so all 3 of us joined. And the first night that we joined, we noticed immediately that something's afoot. And so it's like on the Tuesday reset. And like myself and the other 2 guys, we're getting in for like basically every boss too, because I don't know, apparently they were having issues on Elisand and we were more qualified than some of the people that they had previously. This should have been a red flag. But we were apparently going to get on everything. And I was like, what the fuck? I was like, this kind of owns, like, whatever, I'll take this. And at some point, I like tab over and I look, and there's 35 fucking people in Discord with us. And I'm sitting there and I'm just like, what is up with this shit? And we have 35 people in the raid whenever the raid starts. And I'm just like, I DM'd the person who recruited me, the officer who recruited me. I was like, yo, how many people you guys have on this roster? He goes, oh, 34. I was like, what the fuck is this? I just sit there. I'm just like, I DM my friends. I'm just like, yo, apparently I shouldn't have invited you guys to this trap ass guild with me because they have 34 members, including us now. I don't really know what to think about this. I don't like this. And so we have a good week, we get loot, and then we immediately leave. And we're just, as soon as like the farm is over, I got a Star Augur kill that would have been like progression for me, and I immediately left the guild the day after. I was like, dude, I gotta go somewhere else. I am not dealing with this. And the person who recruited me was so fucking mad.
I mean, did they tell you there were 34 people?
No. If I would have known, I would have joined.
Yeah, that's benching 14 people a fight, and like just trying to think about who gets loot in that situation is something else.
Dude,
oh my god.
Anytime you're over 30 as well, like you can't all play in a heroic clear at the start of a tier. Right? Which, like, to me, that is a line that really you shouldn't go over.
Yeah.
For like 90% of guilds.
What I said to them was like, dude, you should have included this information whenever we were talking about your guild. I think I would have liked to have known this. He's like, but you didn't ask. I was like, how the fuck am I supposed to know to ask? Do you guys have 35 people on your roster?
Yeah, do you think that's a good thing to add, like, to get in the habit of talking about? Is like, what is your roster size? What's your what if you guys were, when you're a guild interviewing or whatever, or a candidate interviewing, like trying to figure out, because a lot of guilds just kind of wing it. But I think it's worth talking about is like, how many people are on your roster now? Okay, do you want more or less than that, or is that the right number? Like,
and myself, like being an officer in a guild, I can say that myself and the other officers, we have conversations about like where we want our roster size to land a couple times a tier at least.
Yeah.
But maybe even more. But it's like, it's not something that I guess we publicly tell people unless asked, but definitely something that maybe if you're trying to join a guild, you should ask that.
I mean, I think you're kind of right that it's just like 34 people is just like that's a weird number. That is 8 people more than like normal. I think 26 is a pretty normal size for a roster. 25 somewhere in that range.
So.
And
that's what I said.
A lot of guilds run a bit higher than that or a bit lower than that, depending on what their specifics are. But once you start getting that high, it's just like half of your members are sitting on any given boss. That is a weird dynamic that is worth, like, you can't get mad at people like leaving over joining that because it's just different than what they're expecting.
I was like, what the fuck is this? I was like, I don't really care to rate this much anyways. I was like, I had other offers from like 16-hour guilds that were higher than that. I was like, what the fuck is this shit?
All right, our next prompt comes from Morsha in Discord, who asks, with all the recent Tettles Bear clips, can we expect a top 7 Tettles fails part 2 video? For those who don't know, I made a top 7 Tettles fails video like a year ago now, which is kind of cool. It's kind of fun.
Oh.
I just watched old Tettles fail clips. Some of my favorites among that, many of my favorite Tettles clips are still from Legion. The Kill Jaden taunt.
That was good.
Yeah.
I rebound my taunt after that. I haven't taunted the boss in so fucking long.
Tettle's just fighting Kill Jaden and then dead, and you just see him like, what? I just taunted the boss.
I was like, I just done. Well, dude, it was on the same bind. Okay, so like action bars change whenever you stance change in WoW, and it's like that bind that was for taunt is the same bind like as it is in bear form, which is Q. But in Moonkin form, that's Sunfire, which is like obviously not a thing. So now my Moonkin bear form taunt is like some random ass bind, but my bear one is still Q.
That's the thing about Druid as well, is you need those like weird conditional logic setups for like, okay, what do I want this bind to do in this form? Okay, what do I want to do in this form? That's definitely something that is actually a bit daunting about setting up a bear, like, or not a bear, but like a druid, an optimized druid. So you have to think about all kinds of different situations about what you want bound in which form. Yeah, I don't know if I'll create another Tettles fail compilation.
Dude, I was tanking dungeons recently. I did a 20 miss to Tear in the Scythe. I did not die once. We depleted the key by like 2 minutes, but it was not my fault. It actually wasn't my fault. I pulled aggressively enough to try to time the key. The first boss just took 5.5 minutes, 5:45 or something. And
was this last week?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, Tyran. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I tanked the 20 miss, so I'm happy enough. I'll fucking take that.
They gotta, dude. I feel like if they hit Tyran one more time, if they nerf it down to 20% from 30, I think we might be in. I think we might be in business. Actually, I think it might be okay there. Because it was a pretty big.
At least
nerf.
for this season.
Yeah.
Maybe for future seasons too. I could see 20% being okay.
20% just, it feels like it would be enough that it. The problem is there, like, I don't know, maybe at that point people just don't feel it enough in their weekly 10s or whatever, so Blizzard wouldn't want to do that.
I mean, even with Pride right now,
yeah,
where it stands is fucking bad.
That's true. Pride is sort of an anti-tyrannical measure in a lot of ways. Like a Pride season should be a better tyrannical season than a default one.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, next prompt.
Oh, I have a question. Trell, how's your computer coming? Your computer situation?
Oh yeah, I'm building a new computer on the side.
Detail.
I finally got a hold of a 2080 Ti. I couldn't even get a 3080. It's still impossible to get a 3080. I like joined some discords and I like started tracking when they came into stock on a bunch of sites, and I was just like, screw it, I'm just gonna get a 2080 instead. But I'll probably have a new computer next week at some point.
Ooh, very
cool. Are you building? You're building it yourself?
Yeah. I've been ordering parts here and there. It's my second computer I built, actually.
It seems like right now is one of the times where, depending on your constraints, it might actually make more sense to, like, I think it's less bad to buy pre-built right now than usual, because you can actually, like, get a 3080 if
that's one of the ways you can get
pre-built. One. Yeah, because they have all those deals set up. But I'm kind of interested in upgrading some hardware, but I don't know. I also just kind of love waiting stuff out. I'm waiting for things to get better without doing anything.
See, I would have waited it out, but like right now, eventually I'll stream again, and I can't even stream Raid right now. It just, my computer can't handle it. So I was like, I'm just gonna upgrade. It's time.
Yeah, especially, man, I never noticed it until the start of the tier. 30 people in a raid is actually like so much more nonsense for a computer to handle than 20.
On something like when the Echoes of Sin come out on Tanathrius and there's 30 people and everyone's games just freeze.
Sorry, Tanathrius has a few question marks for me performance-wise. Like the fact that it's just like, basically every group has problems with that boss on lag or something in the first phase. Like, I don't know. Feels like that should be more highly prioritized, not happening. It's not a big gripe though, because it is at least just phase 1. But if that was like phase 3, where the damage check mattered, and you had that kind of lag, that would be really lame. Okay, next question comes from Warax, who asks, when creating content, do you try to fill a specific niche, or do you just create stuff that interests you? Tettles, what's your philosophy here?
I always end up just making stuff that interests me personally. I noticed that at least helps me be more interested in stuff long term. I mean, dude, fucking recently I'm sure people can tell I've been so fucking burned out of just everything. Like I don't know. I sit there and I look at that EU series and I was like so passionate about it for such a long time, and I'm just like right now I'm fucking just I fucking can't be asked to do anything right now, and I'm just like if I get motivated, I'm so internally motivated too. It's like not even one of those things that like I'm just waiting for something to go right. It's just like I haven't personally been like super into it. It's definitely like one of those things that I always try to fill a niche of like things that I personally enjoy, because I know at least in the long term that's going to be better for me personally. Because like if I, especially if I shoehorn myself into something that I don't enjoy, like I've watched people who end up streaming shit like, oh dude, you guys know the streams like the M plus Kiri streams, and like they end up shoehorning and tailoring all their content into shit like that, and then eventually they're just known for being an M plus Kiri streamer, and they have like no actual longevity on their stuff that they're doing. And I know it for me personally, if I got like, even if I was super fucking successful with that, if I hated it, I would not enjoy what I do. Like even like almost independent of how successful I was.
I think that's accurate for a lot of people. Like I personally, I don't even want to be a full-time content creator. I don't think I could do it. That's just not my personality. And so my concerns with that kind of thing would go much farther than even yours. So I feel for you in that situation. However, I think Dratnos is good at any kind of content creation thing, and he somehow enjoys every part of it.
I mean, I haven't created much in the last like month.
This motherfucker is like takes the most breaks out of all of us.
Okay, that's true. He does take a lot of breaks.
There's nothing wrong with it, but
yeah, I don't know. It's I'm pretty far on the side of like I don't like force myself to work when I'm not feeling it.
I've been there. I
like,
force myself to work whenever I'm
if I wanted to force myself to work, I could just go and like, I don't know, do a high paying, job that has hours where you actually just have to force yourself to work or whatever. But like, I don't know. I feel like the upside of if you're trying to be like a content creator, it's got to be because like you prefer that, right? So if you ever turn it into something that you're doing and you don't want to be doing, like what's the point, right?
I must admit it does stress me out though, like knowing that it can kind of go away.
Well,
like,
there's always that fear of like your audience dying down or whatever, people not being there in the future, and like you're shrinking because it's such a growth oriented every like Twitter, Facebook, not Facebook, but Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, all are very growth oriented, right? It's like, oh yeah, you see everybody posting like, oh, here's how many followers I got last month. Here's this like posting. You see people come back, they'll post these like stream stats, and it's like, oh yeah, I got 1,000 subs today. And you're just looking at it, you're like, man, I should have streamed today. What am I doing? Or you see somebody pumping out videos for a month, and then they post like a shot. It's like, I pumped out videos for a month, and a lot of people watch my videos. My channel grew a lot, and it's like, yeah, I mean that's how it works. But you got to strike a balance that's sustainable.
I did that for a month. I don't know how the fuck people do it. I seriously like. If I was like super serious about it, I think like maybe I hire an editor or something like that. Like I fucking love editing my own videos, but like for me it's like not feasible financially to hire an editor. But at the same point, it's like holy shit, there's a lot of fucking work. I don't really know what to do.
I think that for a lot of like content creator types, that's a big thing that lets you scale, because like editing takes a lot of time and it's not something that you have like unlimited interest for. Like usually it's the bottleneck, right? For between video ideas and like videos going on, it's not just how many videos you could make, it's like how many videos are you willing to edit in a week,
dude,
right? That's the bottleneck.
It takes so much time. I don't think people realize typically how much time like a good video actually takes someone unless they hire an editor. It's hours and hours usually.
For me too, it's like hilarious because I could sit there and I could do voiceovers for like forever and like really just like hammer through the ideas, and it's just like the fucking editing process of getting all the clips compiled and like getting everything set up to tell like a really concise story. That's the fucking I find myself struggling the most whenever I have to do that, because like also just I don't know, sometimes I'm super into it, and like I think that's like circling back to the question. I think that like making sure that it's something that I'm interested in keeps me more into it, at least in the long term, because it's a marathon, not a sprint. And I've definitely treated it as a sprint lately, especially like noticing how it's really affecting my mental health and shit like that. Like I've noticed that like I haven't really been off for 2 years at this point, year and a half, something like that, and it's like Maybe I should try to slow down a little bit.
Stuff like weekly commitments as well. Like even this podcast, is something that you're just like every single week you got to do it. So if you have,
Well,
if you have like,
I like this.
Yeah. But even this, and especially like if you have like a weekly video that you make every week, a weekly article that you write every week, and you start like you have weekly raid and all that kind of layering on top of each other, it's really hard to actually find like a sequence of even 24 hours or like 2 days in a row where you just don't have to like do anything. So that's certainly a challenge that, especially when you're feeling burned out, it can like compound on that.
I like the weekly stuff because it keeps me like really like structured and like moving straight forward. The stuff that I have to do in the fill time in between is the stuff that like really fucking burns me out.
Interesting.
I don't know why.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different models for being a successful content creator as well that that work as well. So I think it's not like a one size fits all solution. I think that at the end of the day, there's like a bunch of different factors that you want to have as many as you can. But
yeah,
the
biggest thing too about being self-employed is like just make sure it's something about you're fucking passionate about. Like if you're working for somebody else, you can kind of just get away with being lukewarm on your job. If you're fucking self-employed, you better fucking love it.
For sure.
That is definitely true.
All right, let's move on to another prompt. This one is unattributed. It is, so I guess maybe Tettles wrote it even, perhaps. What dungeons from pre-Legion expansions would you like to see in M+ style, and why is it not the Arcatraz? Okay, so it's not Tettles didn't write this because the Arcatraz is from before Tettles' time. So it's somebody unattributed. Thanks for sending that one in. I get this question a lot, actually. Like, if you could bring a dungeon into M+ from like WoD or earlier, which one did you pick? Although I think that WoD and MoP are a little bit of a like those had challenge modes, right? So the dungeons were a little bit more creative with that in mind. Like if you said, I think Iron Docks, for instance, is a pretty common answer that like it's that dungeon just basically already ready for M+.
I would have preferred Everbloom.
Yeah.
I think that one would be more in line of like what you're looking for in terms of like an actual M+ dungeon. I think that Iron Docks is like it's like too fucking linear. It's kind of weird. And like, can you imagine putting count restriction on Iron Docks? I mean, the cool part about Iron Docks is that you just skip like half the shit.
Yeah.
Can you imagine fucking zoning into Iron Docks and the first pull is like the goddamn room? You're like, what am I doing with all this trash?
Yeah, I think that's there's a lot of nostalgia as well aimed back at especially the challenge mode dungeons, right? Because people remember how fun the challenge modes were in them. Old-timey ones. Okay, and it can't be the Arcatraz. I do think there were actually some pretty strong Burning Crusade dungeons. Obviously, a lot has changed since then. They're low on mechanics by these days standards, but I think that a lot of those dungeons were really good for the time.
Yeah, I didn't really play a lot back then, so I don't really have a opinion on it, but I did like the WoD dungeons for sure.
Wrath has had some good ones also. I think like Pit of Sauron was one that you could maybe make work. That one you basically like did an M+ skip right at the start as well. I don't know. It's tough because like obviously if you just, I feel like any of them would need to get like overhauled if they wanted to turn them into M+ dungeons. But I actually think this would be a kind of cool thing to do. I feel like every season there should be like one or two returning dungeons from either from a previous expansion or like overhauled new ones, overhauling a one that's never been an M+ dungeon before into being one. I feel like that would add a lot of variety.
I want them to add back the Nexus as an M+ dungeon.
The Nexus?
No. That's the dragon one, right?
The Oculus, you mean?
Around.
Oh no, the
Oculus,
Nexus.
whatever.
Yeah, the Nexus is the underground one. The Oculus is the
Which
vehicle one.
Which one was the fucking bad
The Oculus
one?
was the bad one. Yeah.
Okay, the Oculus. Yes.
Yeah. Nexus was pretty bad too. It was okay though. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like adding more dungeons as well is less important than the dungeons just having a high ratio of exciting ones to not exciting ones. Like if I could change one thing about dungeon design philosophy, it's just I'd try and break apart the linearity of the dungeons, because I feel like this expansion has taken a big step towards linear.
Every dungeon, man.
Yeah.
Like even the least linear dungeon is fucking Halls of Atonement.
Hall's first area.
It's half linear. Like the dungeon is literally.
The other side is like 3 wings that you can theoretically go to in any order, but really it's just left or right first because there's a lot of extra travel time.
It's a linear
Yeah.
dungeon.
It's
I
so
think that dungeon's
it ends up
definitely
being
linear.
very linear, yeah. Then most of the
I
others
think
are like, yeah.
a fucking tube. Yeah, dude, they gotta stop with this shit. I've seen actually a lot of complaints recently about there not being enough dungeons. People saying that eight's too few and that they wish there were more. And I'm like, I don't really mind 8. I feel like 8 feels fine, especially with like how
I
the
agree.
N+E reroll system feels. Like you have 5 people in a fucking group. You have 8 dungeons. Like the odds of you getting like at least something desirable that you're kind of looking for is pretty high. But all in all, like I do think that they took a pretty big step back in terms of like way too fucking linear dungeons. They gotta stop that.
Yeah, it's hard to say how much of the. It just feels like the amount of like diverging gameplay experience in dungeons has gone down by a lot. Where like there's a lot less where a certain dungeon will play differently, even within a week, even within the same group, but especially like week to week, group to group. It feels a lot less diverse than before. And I think to some extent it's the increased linearity of the dungeons, and to some extent it's the prideful affix further compounding that and really incentivizing routes to do basically the same thing every time to set up the same pride timings.
Because 20% counts is like really important. Yeah,
I think also just the AoE cap is a huge.
AoE cap is massive.
It's a huge factor in reducing the optionality in the dungeons, right? Because you just if you're looking at a set of 5 mobs, you don't have options about what you can pull with it, or whether you could do two pulls of 4 instead, or any of that kind of stuff. Because the AoE cap is just such a hard. Like if you're playing with those specs, which usually have some spec that's hard capped at 5.
Dude, you guys remember when I went ham on the Covenant specific dungeon buffs like in October? I think that those things are so fucking bad even still, man. Like it's funny because I'll look back on it and every single thing I said about the reasons that shit's going to be bad is exactly true. And you have people in fucking LFG, Halls of Atonement plus 18, Venthyr only. Motherfucker, I hate you. I knew that this was going to happen.
Yeah. I don't know, it's weird because like within the dungeons you usually just have that person, so it's to me it's kind of like the conduit energy thing, where it's like you don't really notice it when it does anything good, which is questionable if it ever does, but you really do notice it if it ever comes up in a negative way. So it seems like an own goal, where it's like why
Yeah, the conduit energy thing seems so pointless to me.
Conduit energy to me is the most offensive. It's like what person playing this game has ever had their experience improved by the existence of conduit energy, right? Like what is actually the purpose, right? And I struggle to think about this, and I feel like the most likely thing is that, well, either they want to enhance the like identity of the conduits and soulbind tree, and so the restriction makes it feel like you're making a more permanent choice, and so that is some kind of benefit there, or it's like they want people to not feel obligated to switch their conduits around for certain kinds of content. But like it's already a pain to do it. You already have to go back to your Forge of Souls. Like I feel like that would be enough of a roadblock that's like, hey, you have to go back to your order hall, right? Like that should be enough to stop people from feeling obligated to do it every single dungeon or whatever if they don't want to.
I actually don't mind this expansion though. I think there are actually like a lot of really good things about the expansion just as a whole. I think that the stuff that is bad is like pretty fucking dumb though, because we just look at it and you're just like, what do you?
That's the thing about the conduit energy. Decision? Yeah,
it's like the conduit energy is just like dumb.
It's low magnitude because it just doesn't come up that often. But when it does, it's just why.
I mean, the shit with loot, this whole entire expansion has been so cooked too. And then on top of that, and then you have like stupid shit like AoE capping and like Covenant specific buffs. And you're just like,
I find loot to be less offensive.
I think loot's less egregious. I would agree.
Well, I feel like loot was like they had good ideas, right, about what they wanted to do with loot. They came out with an implementation that had a lot of strengths and a lot of weaknesses. And then in the first like 5 months of the expansion, they've been making several good steps towards improving the loot situation for all the players that were affected negatively in a bunch of different ways from the loot. So I feel like that makes sense, right? Like they were trying to accomplish something. The thing with WoW is every expansion they're trying to reinvent the game, right? And so there's always just going to be new systems and new stuff that's broken. And but what's important with loot is I think they came in with a good idea and they're working on cleaning up the implementation, making it even better. And there were a lot of ways the loot has been problems in the past. Titanforge and Corruption were two extremely complained about systems that had their own host of problems. And so a system that exists without them, there's a lot of good reasons to try and do that. the thing with the like AoE cap and the conduit energy to me is there was no good idea behind them in the first place, right? The AoE cap, maybe there's some good idea, but the implementation of it being at 5 and a hard cap for entire specs is not. Like, that's a different thing than the creating a little bit of identity between Cleave and you know, the AoE, which I think is a good thing. But the hard caps at 5 for several entire specs in the game is just so, I don't know, myopic.
You know what I really love? I love that Windwalker's about to get fucking just gutted via bug fixes in 905. That one's really funny.
Yeah, that one's pretty cool. Rip AoE from Windwalkers.
My favorite thing about Windwalker is just the entire specs balance. It's never mattered whether they like buff the aura by 5% or nerf the aura by 5% for Windwalker. Literally the only thing that has ever made the spec good or bad is when they change how Storm, Earth, and Fire is bugged. Because it's always been bugged, and it's just when they change how the bug is, whether it's favorable or unfavorable for the player, that's what makes the specs good or bad.
Mark of the Crane too is also one of the things that like always fucking bugged, and like one of the biggest reasons that they're good or bad.
Very, very funny to watch. As long as
it's so fun. I would be so mad if I were my spec. I would actually just be so tilted, literally just permanently.
I'm kind of apathetic about it because I think they'll tune up single target or something. Well, actually, I don't know. But if they don't, I'll just swap classes. But for those that don't know, like the Mark of the Crane thing, the reason why Windwalkers were doing so much damage on AoE is because you'd carry over your stacks like after the target died, and they would stay there for a long time. So you'd have like 6 stacks of Mark of the Crane, which typically means there are 6 targets in front of you that you're hitting, but even on like 1 or 2 targets later in the fight, which is really, really nice.
Yeah, they're also capping it to 5 total Mark of the Cranes out at any one time. That's getting unlimited, right? It was just based on
it was
press a global.
It was unlimited in Legion, and then they made it 5 in BFA, and then they upped it to 6 in this patch for Shadowlands, and now they're already back down to 5 because Windwalker was good for 1 tier.
I see. Okay, so 6-5. That's close. I retract the.
It used to be unlimited. That was actually fucking nuts.
I remember the Antorus Windwalker. Actually. Yeah, Antorus Windwalker was something else.
Windwalker would stack haste, wear the Sefu's legendary, so you could proc like a massive haste bonus, and then you just Tiger Palm, spinning Crane Kick over and over and over again in a pull, and you get up to like 27 stacks of Mark of the Crane and just do like infinite damage. It was really cool.
I feel like that kind of stuff, you know, it reminds me of what the game was like back when tier sets were a huge source of power.
Yeah,
because your spec would change so much from patch to patch, and it was this way that they could just like break a spec and they didn't have to fix it, right? They didn't have to figure out how they were going to make it balanced at some point in the future. You know, when they make like an overpowered monk conduit or monk legendary, like they have to fix it, right? They have to fix it, and all of the interactions that it possibly has for the rest of the expansion, they have to just come up with like, how is this going to be okay? Whereas with tier sets, it's just like, yeah, you could just have a tier set that just gives a spec 15% damage, which is way more than the like 5% they usually give, and like that spec's just good for a tier, and it plays differently, and then the tier set's gone because it's the next tier. And if it's still good, if everybody's still wearing 4-piece of the last set, you nerf it then, and like, you know, problem solved.
Yeah, and you're allowed to have bad interactions like fucking Animal Companion double hitting with Wild Spirits and Serpent Stalkers double hitting with Wild Spirits, because you know it's only in a tier long thing, and like it'll eventually be gone, as opposed to Wild Spirits and Serpent Stalkers are an expansion long thing. And I would not be surprised if Serpent Stalkers doesn't randomly get fixed or not double hit with Wild Spirits and then make Hunter worse.
And the thing is, it's like there, you know, it's more resources to create those things 3 times per expansion than 1 time per expansion, right? But
sure,
they make so many superfluous systems that you could just spend the time doing that and just have more impactful and interesting systems that come in at you know, more frequent intervals as well, right? So like, rather than having legendary effects and conduits and soulbind traits and covenant abilities, right? You know, rather than having design on all 3 of those or all 4 of those, right? You could just have like 1 of those be expansion wide, and then 3 instead of those other 3 things, you just have tier set style effects where there's something that is entirely washed away at the next tier, and you go on to the next, you know, thing. And so instead of the expansion level borrowed power, it's patch level borrowed power, like tier sets were. So to me, that's one big thing that I've missed ever since Legion throughout all of BFA was the the way that my spec would play differently from patch X.0 to X.1 to X.2 to X.3. And there have been a lot of specs that fundamentally throughout all of BFA played basically the same until corruption like broke everything wide open. But
you know what's funny? I think that like whenever essences came out, I actually didn't fucking realize like what they even kind of did until I started playing with the system for a little bit. Whereas with like tier sets, you would always get so fucking hyped to just look at what next tier set bonus
actually, you'd start theory crafting about it.
Yeah,
that was really cool.
Yeah, because essences were like supposed to be that kind of thing, right? But like none of them. There were a couple that were interesting, like the Lucid Major, if that was good for your spec, or Vision Procs potentially. But for the most part, they were just like this button that you pressed on cooldown that was a long cooldown that did a lot of damage, right? It was like, oh, this is a beam that does a lot of damage, or explosion that does a lot of damage, or like a 3-minute cooldown that gives you haste and does damage. And so they weren't these like rotationally changing things where it's like, okay, if you make Garrote, give you 2 extra combo points and usable twice or whatever, those sorts of effects are big. You feel that your spec feels different for a while, and then it goes away afterwards. Whereas it was just like basically just the version of Rogue that was in BFA was the good Azurite traits for it, right? This like Shroud of Suffocation for Assassination Rogue was just the entire expansion, right? It was just how the spec was designed for that expansion, rather than being like something new for a patch. So I don't know. I'm hopeful that they at some point will take a turn back to the patch based gameplay being different. The thing I'm mostly hopeful about is I feel like most people feel pretty low attachment to like their conduits.
I'm low attachment to my covenant even.
Traits, and so like I feel like those would be a good spot to just take the resources out of building that kind of system and put it into tier set bonus effects like that. Because you're so right, Tettles, where like when you first saw the data mine of all the tier set abilities and you spent like an hour looking through that whole list, you're like, this is so cool. What does this do? That's so cool.
You like immediately scroll down like into your Discord list and go look at the theory crafting channels and like the random ass class discords, and you're like, how big is this tier bonus, bro?
Yeah.
Is this gonna be epic or is this gonna fucking suck? Do I reroll now?
All right.
I can't wait for my conduit that goes up from 6% more movement speed from pressing some random spell I never pressed at 7%.
Epic! So epic.
Our next prompt is more of a strategy question, which is still welcome. At what keystone level does committing offensive CDs to kill Pride mobs become mandatory, and which CDs do you commit? When does skipping Pride become a time save? And are there specific situations that you just need that Pride buff, even if skipping would be a time save?
Well, I think it's really hard to quantify when you start to have to commit CDs, because that's, first of all, it depends on what class you are, if you're going to use the CD there or not. It depends on your healer, how high they can heal a Pride for like 40 seconds or 20 seconds between the two, basically. And then also like what state your group is in when the Pride spawns, and like what's the affix and what's going on. There's so many factors. I don't know. I'd say like maybe 18 to 20 range. You have to start thinking about those things more.
Yeah, I think that you want to, be more aggressive with committing your shorter cooldowns, of course. So any like 1 minutes, just fire those things off on the Prides. Honestly, like 2 minutes. You got to think a little bit about what are you going to use the Pride for. How much is this Pride going to synergize with me having my 2 minute available? Are we going to go and like lust a boss as our next order of business with Pride? Because if so, you want to work really hard to save any 2 minutes that you can for that moment, right? But yeah, I mean, like I think, like you said, just taking note, particularly if you're winging it, right? If it's not like something that you're planning out and repeating the same dungeon at the same key level over and over again, at which point you'd want to do things consistently. I think what you want to do is, look at your health totals. Look at your healer's mana bar when the Pride spawns. Are there any other mobs you're still in combat with? All of those things can really help you decide to pull the trigger or not. If in doubt, I always just would advise pulling the trigger on a cooldown if it's a close decision. I'm always in favor of just pressing button, but that's my general approach to dungeons. When does skipping Prides become a time save? I think theoretically everywhere. If you can do it, right?
Basically, if you think you can live the next thing you're going to pull, then I think skipping Pride is always a time save, unfortunately.
I think the only time that's like playing a Pride is like a time save is like if there's shit that's going to actually wall you, like a Like some of the bosses are pretty bad. Like Hakar is like the notable one that really comes to mind. The first thing I'd say is like, if you're gonna get walled by some bullshit, like miss first boss, somebody typed in chat. That's another really good example.
Yeah.
Like
that one I think you do save time by having a pride buff for, actually.
Yeah.
I think like
I don't know. I don't know if you necessarily save time, but like it's definitely a lot a bit safer.
Yeah. So I think that's good. Good general heuristics. I don't know. I think just play him until you start depleting keys because of the timer, and then you start thinking about skipping him.
Yeah. I really hope they fix skipping prides. I do not like that.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's getting kind of late in the patch to do this sort of like. I mean, we're more than halfway through Pride, probably, or at least reaching the halfway point. But
yeah.
I think they should as well.
True.
Our final prompt / question thing is push week casting when, which I assume is at me and Tettles.
And, when are you guys going to bring back the extravaganza?
So I don't know. There's a couple of things I think we'd want to do if we were to do again, which I don't know. We haven't talked about it off podcast.
We can talk about it now.
But
I guess
we can. Yeah, it's interesting.
We just spitball the ideas and see what people think.
I would want to do it again sometime soon. Yeah, I think that was fun.
I would be down. I would be down to do it again.
I think we'd go for a shorter daily hour commitment than we did the first time, perhaps. Not sure though if you agree with that, Tettles. Maybe did you like just bombing 10 hours a day into that thing?
The 12 hours a day the 12 hours a day was really fucking ambitious to begin with.
Yeah,
I think that whenever we started to cut it back down to like 8, it felt a little bit more reasonable. I mean, honestly, something we could do is we could just like only spend like an hour a day and like just like compile a bunch of shit. But I think that we like in terms of it to make sense, like we could do this thing where we have like a Sports Center style show, but like that would require so much off broadcast time.
Right.
I think it reaches an equilibrium where it's just worth us to fucking just like watch groups run for 8 hours live, right?
That's the thing, is that if you cut the show down to like 1 hour of highlights, the amount of time to compile those highlights is basically the same length.
Yeah, exactly. If we converted it into a 1 hour show, it'd still be 8 hours of you and I just sitting here fucking watching groups run.
Yeah, I feel like that could maybe be interesting to try out though. See if it was something people liked. I think one thing we'd want to do as well is find some way of like funding a prize pool for among teams competing in it. Right now, actually, Radar.io is doing you're doing like a store mount giveaway for the top run of each dungeon. I don't know if you guys saw that, where top run of each dungeon this week in EU or NA is getting a store mount per player, limit 1 per account.
I think that what we're talking about is something a little bit more, at least like monetary wise, than just a store mount per player. I think that like ideally it could be like even like a couple $1,000s, like, but at that point we would either have to get like a sponsor or do like a
crowdfund thing
for it. Yeah, which I mean, I think that
Path of Exile, they do that. They do these races in Path of Exile. A guy Zizarin runs these races that like he has an incredible amount of crowdfunding that he deploys to make them like that. I mean, it's like real premier
it's actually
esport
impressive
level. Maybe not premier esport level, but like seriously worth the time if you're a top placing player to do those things.
Does he take any of that? Does he take any of the money, or is it all?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
How do we make this like
fiscally the other problem we'd have to solve is we didn't make any money off of it last time, but we weren't trying to either. But like it was actively a lot worse than just like even just a normal stream schedule, because we weren't chatting out subs or whatever. We weren't doing any of that kind of
we didn't get many.
So yeah,
I did not get many.
We were streaming like 10 hours a day and earning dramatically less than I would on like a 3-hour stream or whatever normally. And we weren't running ads or any of that kind of stuff. And I feel like it's nice to have a stream that's not like monetized, because I personally enjoy watching streams that aren't super monetized, right? When you're watching a stream and it's like got like a bunch of partners and ad breaks and all that kind of stuff, like that does hurt the experience to some extent. But those are definitely things we'd have to consider if we wanted to try and do it as a long-term thing.
So how would we like monetize it? Like, fuck. I honestly, dude, in my best case scenario, I think we would just like get like a couple of sponsors, and you and I would be able to just like bomb something with like sponsorships, and like we would dump like half the money into the prize pool, and then like half the money goes to you and I or whatever, right? And that would be the easiest. I think in my mind that would be the best solution, but I think the easiest solution is probably crowdfunding something, and then you and I fucking being poor.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't care too much about like the less frequent it is, the less I care about it not making a lot of money, right? But if it was something that I wanted to do, that we were doing like often, it would need to be something where I wasn't just like incinerating my revenue for the week by doing it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's definitely incinerating our time and revenue for the week, which is the problem. Like, so I guess I'll give my numbers. Basically, I ended up calculating. I made some bullshit like $3.75 an hour that was spent doing that. I normally do not make that little whenever I'm streaming. Like, I'll be honest, I do not make that little whenever I'm streaming. Normally, I made fucking nothing for that whole entire section though. Like, and to the point where it's just like, damn, I'm fine money wise because like I do other shit with like MDI and whatnot, right? So like my long term income is settled by like actual casting, but like I don't know what the fuck I'm gonna do about this event, at least in terms of making it profitable.
Yeah, it's tough as well because, like, you know, if at any point we did monetize it and we were making money off of it, we kind of need to like not just come up with a money stream that goes to us then, but in order for it to be fair, we'd have to have a way that the money went to the the people whose videos we were watching, right?
Dude,
it's like,
yeah, exactly. And because we don't want to be like, okay, yeah, we could go and fucking talk to people about it, like getting permission to restream their shit, and I'm sure they'd probably say yes. But like, I don't want to feel like a piece of shit actively making like lots of money while just structurally just restreaming other people's stuff. Whereas like, I also don't want it to be a problem either, where people feel like we duped them or we're not like forthcoming or fair. And in all honesty, there was even some of that bullshit last time, even though that was completely unjust and out of line.
Yes, let's leave that. We'll move on to
It was definitely a good show. I think a lot of people enjoyed it and just want to see it again. But like you said, it's a little profit, so it's definitely like a passion project for now.
Yeah,
but I think people know that.
I think next time we want to make a prize pool though. I think
that's the thing I'd like is yeah, some cool way to incentivize the teams as well to like. I mean, I think that may even bring more people into it, that kind of stuff, and make it more exciting. And I think that makes it more exciting for viewers as well. Because honestly, when we did it last time, that it was just people playing for no stakes as well, which was interesting. And obviously, it was a good proof of concept because a lot of people watched it. But I think it would be even more interesting if it like mattered whether the team timed something, not just for like their glory.
That is the most important thing, is that the viewership was very, very good.
Yeah, and certainly,
and I think we ended up averaging something like it was like 3,500 viewers a day or something like that for the whole entire time,
which is a lot more than we usually do.
For what we have, I mean, 3,500 viewers for the whole entire duration, that was like really good. So basically, next point is get some money, fund a prize pool, potentially pick up a sponsor, pay people, hopefully pay ourselves.
Maybe crowdfund. Yeah, again, crowdfund something we'd look into.
I don't know. Hopefully pay ourselves, but I think that's the lowest on our totem pole, at least at this point.
Definitely the other stuff would all need to be taken care of first before we get to that.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it's definitely something we actively think about doing again at some point. I don't know if we'll do it this season or next season or something, but we'll start looking into those more seriously. All those different factors, especially now MDI season is closing up. Which, by the way, for those who don't know, MDI this coming weekend's the last. So not this in like 10 days. In 10 days is the last cup of the season. Before then, at some point in the future, there will be the finals or whatever, and that's going to be exciting. So come check it out.
Fourth cup.
Cup 4. Cup 4.
I was love casting it. I love MDI, man.
Yeah. All right. I think that's our story time about taken care of. Let us deliver some thanks to the patrons at this time. Patreon.com/Titanforge, making our little show here possible. One thing that we talked about last week was the Mimosas and M Plus event that they were running at on Saturday when we were doing our MDI casting, me and Tettles. But Trell, you were in that. How did that go? How did that Mimosas and M Plus thing go with the patrons?
That was actually really, really successful. We had like 25, 30 people hanging out in Discord for a couple hours, and we had 3 groups running keys. One of them was an EU group that like the majority of us organizing it were NA, so we didn't even have a way to organize that. They just organized their own group and started going, and it was a lot of fun. People were just chill. If you missed the last one, be sure to get the next one.
Yeah, I heard that there were a lot of Keystone Master achievements being earned. Very very cool to hear that. Glad that the patrons put that all together. Very cool. So stick around.
Yeah,
we'll obviously shout those out whenever we know of them.
They're doing another one again this weekend.
This weekend, another one.
Yeah.
Wow, this is gonna be a weekly thing. Pretty cool.
I don't know.
Maybe for a little bit, yeah. I don't know if I'll be there this time, but it does sound like they're doing it again
It's a
this
good week for
Saturday,
it.
I think.
Cool. So yeah, swing by our Discord if you want to hear about that. You just ask people about it in there. I'm sure you'll get an answer. They're usually pretty active in there. Discord link will be in the description below, of course.
Yeah, there's you basically react to a post that Anastasia made, I think is what the deal is with that. But yeah, they try to get as many people in as they possibly can. Obviously, that's how it is.
Right.
So first come, first serve. I'm sure that there were a lot of groups running though.
Dude, my guild used to do this thing, and where we would do, like, if we cleared a raid night early, we would do exclamation point keys among our like 20 people. Yeah, I don't know if you've seen this. It was actually so fun. This is kind of a good story. We would do exclamation point keys or whatever among our 20 people, and if there were 4 people that had the same 4 keys, those would be that would be the key we would do. And so we called it the PCI, the Parse Culture Invitational at the time. So we would, those 4 people would become team captains, and they would draft among the other 16 of us teams for their dungeon run. And then we would lower the keys so that they were all the same level. So whatever the lowest of them was, if somebody had like a 16 under rot, and 18, 18, and 20, they would all get lowered down to 16. And then just all of us in the same Discord channel at the same time would go and do that dungeon. We'd start it at the same time. And we were trying to communicate with our team, but also we're all in the same Discord channel. So we're sometimes trying to screw the other teams by calling bad stuff in their runs. It's a delight. I do that kind of thing. Yeah, that's fun. Maybe we do that at some point in the Discord.
That's basically what this event was. The Mimosas and Mythic Plus. It's just we weren't like trying to screw each other over. It just kind of ends up being that way.
Yeah, there's some members of my guild that are easier than others to like dupe, so you could like try and call their interrupt or whatever when you weren't in their group and see if you could cause some problems for them. Anyways, those are just some of the. That's our last story for the day. Let's thank the patrons now, as I promised several minutes ago. They are
get on out of here.
Yes. Paul of US Proudmoore, Sports Bra Hot Venthier GF of US Tichondrius, Riley, Delete DH now on Mal'Ganis, Gopher, Mac is heavily considering rerolling Horde, and Dune Mall is a fun place, King of Skills, Zuko, Ja, Dear Sacred Lotus, Good Luck in Castle Nathria and Beyond, Chromed, Trekkie, The Marsh Hare, Regulus, Nevernude, Chewy, Boy King Anduin's Damage unleashes Insurgents next, aka Baduin or Bad Anduin. I wish I was good at acronyms. ZivXX, Salty said that is such a great position to have your name if you to keep that as a. I wish I was good at acronyms. Okay, Salty Zenny, Necris, Revdil, Nevuk, Sinmora, Evie, oh god, please buff Frosty K and PvE. Stevenson, an unnamed benefactor. Take Light of the Protector and Frenzied Regen off the GCD. Woebone Xenoverse, No Trick, I scheduled a Tettle's Flame, Sire Dematicus, Mirror of Seas, Dimat, Syncope, the Sleep Deprived, Vinian, YX. Maybe I'm a monk main now. Maybe not, depending on which spec that is. Annie is going to come from Shadowlands. Dude, Brewmasters are back at that. Brewmasters are like, oh, we're playing this next match. Back. And we're back. Nyx again. Tettle's just deleted a name, so it has adjusted my positioning. Okay, I found it again.
Oh, my bad.
Flick. Nods from Trell.
You're not supposed to read that aloud, bro. Dratus is bad at this.
Dude, okay, all right.
It says don't read aloud in all caps. And
I thought I was just supposed to not read aloud the don't read aloud. Okay, so I guess that wouldn't make any sense. Gallic, Brusive, Chewy, Dranos Rats. So it was just supposed to be Trell nodding was what was supposed to happen there?
Yeah.
All right, I figured it out.
Reads 3 more names, then comes back to the same thing.
I was just processing. I was processing what was going on. The Tettle's effect is just Murphy's Law on steroids. M Sanity, Canyon and Moon Sonar of Emerald Dream Division 7 and Area 52 Scraw. Xena. Shadow Catra is the worst warlock on Zul'jin US. Red color, and SumZero of Tichondrius, and youtube.com/workbringer. I hope everybody's being good about only flaming their friends, by the way. If anybody's using us to flame your enemies, then we're gonna have to adjust our rules about whether
I had to check the Workbringer one. That apparently the RBG channel is what that is.
Okay.
I was like, what is this? I had to like make sure that it wasn't gonna be like really weird if we shouted that out.
Yeah, it's fine to have any sort of safe for work project as
Stratus once said, if the money's there, we don't care.
Did I say that?
I don't know. Maybe I just made you say it.
I guess those words have been placed in my mouth, so that's where we're at. And we don't really have Q&A for this episode because that was kind of just the whole thing. So we are outie. Later, everybody. We'll be back next week.
Bye.
Later.